The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, good people? You know who I am, man. I'm GG. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chases. You know how we do, bro. And before I get things started, man, I want to give a shout out to all you hating ass. Well, let me not curse so soon into the stream. Shout out to the haters, man. What's good with y'all? And if you haven't done so already, man, make sure you hit the like button, man. Hit the subscribe button. And hit the bell notification button so you can stay on top of what's cracking on the Green Gorilla channel, man. Make sure you do that. And also, I want to make sure that all the people who support the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis get some honors. So let me start the process of the roll call, man, and shouting out everybody who supports the Green Gorilla channel. So shout out to H-Town, Rogish Son, Lord Hamal, Jermaine Kamal, Brotherly Love 215, Adrian Thomas, J. Cleveland Green, and Outside the Cube. Big up. Big up to Lee Ways, Electrician 480, Gabenga, Herbert Lewis, Cutting Up with the Jones, Sanko, D. Scott, Julius Ferguson, Path Guy, and Black Swerve 404. Big up. Big up to Pete Rock, Tahuti of New Comet, Gold Professor, Aaron Peters, Bernolis, Dardar, Michael Ross, Vincent Lindsay, Michael Pearson, Beautiful Trauma. Big up. Big up to Quiz the Poet, Black Quizzard 80OS, Jazz Tech, Shadow Observer, Sugar T, Artisan MC, Nasiana, Kyle J. Sura, Kareen, and Troy Warren. Big up. Big up to Jeff R., Mrs. KP Bailey, Ricky Dawson, Alan Wiley, The Face, Mantis on Break, Life of Commerce, True 7360, Marvin Evans, and A. Wilson's Ghost. Big up. Big up to Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr., Mark Holt, John J., Afro Troop TV, Adam, BGS Ivmore, and Ignat's Mouse. Big up. Big up to Brian Peaks, Papa Didas, Scott Haywood, Black Uru, Dr. Tree, Leroy Honeycutt, Broken Blaze, Supertech, 77 Bass X, and Brian McMurray. Big up. Big up to Karen S., Anthony Davis, Seven Coast Dojo, Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Charles Gilmore, Patricia Colley, Greg, and Barry Little. Big up. Big up to Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Cameron 87, Dr. Rock, Mars Swift, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Coach Hotep, and Old Soul Chief. Big up. Big up to Mr. Blue Collar, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Rasheed Barnes, and Aaron Smith. Big up. Also big up to DH and the Revelator, and I can't forget my brothers, Forrest Windu, David Carroll, and Kevin Samuels. Big up to them, man. And on the Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to J Live, Rashawn Phillips Sorrells, Keith Bass, Nick, Malcolm Smith, Rock One, Albert C., Dr. Ben Vincent, I Am the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, William Joyner, Tyrone Hampton, Dornell Smith, Excalibur, Anu 219, Presur Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Momal, and the Sangwa. Big up, y'all all deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel. Thank you. And if you're inquiring about how you can also become a member of the channel and to help me keep things going here, here's how you do it, man. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla Channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, man, I'm back. I'm GG, of course. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla Channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And before I get things started, I want to give a shout out to Electrician 480. He says it's midterms tuition. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Salute to you, sir. And shout out to Barry Little. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you, sir. You are appreciated. Like Pac said in Dear Mama, but we ain't celebrating mamas right now. We celebrating brothers. You feel me? So, you know what I'm here to do today, man. I brought two guests along. I brought my brother Admiral Smoke, also known as Sand Dogg, and the Nameless Protagonist. How y'all brethren doing this afternoon, man? How y'all?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I'm good, man. Riding the gravy train on biscuit wheels, fam.
The gravy train on biscuit wheels. Good Lord.
Yeah, man.
I hear you, bro. The UAE is treating you well, huh?
Yeah, man. I can't complain.
I feel you, bro. I get it. And there's a brother here named The Question that says, YouTube literally unsubs me or turns off my notifications periodically for your show or your channel. Sorry to hear that, man. But you know, man, YouTube does what it does, man. It has its own agenda. So, sorry, man. Glad you're here now. And if you ever do get unsubscribed, just please be patient and subscribe again. You know, these are the things we have to deal with, man. But yo, so, you know, let's not delay and let's not deviate from the path of rectitude. Let's get straight to what it is we came here to do. Last conversation we were having was concerning the era directly after Reconstruction and the ways in which black men were thwarted and stymied in their effort to be full participants in United States culture. And it was denied to them. So you had black men who were senators, black men who fought, you know, in the Civil War to help win it. And then, you know, ultimately the government, the federal government turns its backs on them and they form some pact of, you know, of an unholy kind with the South. And then, you know, it's back to business as usual. It's back to oppressing, marginalizing, and subjecting black folks to violence. But, you know, particularly black men, because we bear the brunt of all of the anti-black racism in this country. We are the, you know, the primary targets. So having said all that, man, I mean, if you want to, you can kind of catch us up and get us up to speed and then take us where you're trying to, you know, take us where you're trying to take us, bro.
You know, facts, right? So, you know, again, slavery allegedly, you know, comes to end in 1865. And then what will happen is that you'll have many southern states during the process of Reconstruction, right? And, you know, and Reconstruction is when they want to integrate the southern states from the Confederacy and 4 million newly free black people into the United States, right? So this is what's happening right now. You know, it's the restoration of the Union, transformation of Southern society, and they want to enact, at least for the radical Republicans, right, to enact progressive legislation favoring, you know, the newly freed slaves, right? But then there's a trick bag to it because a lot of the southern states and some of the northern states will enact something called the Black Codes, right? And so the Black Codes are also tied in with Jim Crow and the disenfranchisement, of Black men, right? And so the Black Codes somewhat come from before slavery, and they're going to now use these laws to impose on the newly freed Black people. Because remember, the Black Codes were created to kind of govern, to control the mobility of free Black people, right? And so, so for free Black people, the restrictions on them will be like things like bearing arms, gathering for worship. If you go back to what I talked about, the history of the Black church, the fear in the Second Awakening, because originally the message of the church was freedom, right? And that slavery should be done with completely. And then, the Southerners kind of get their influence onto it, and then you start getting different messages, right? Education, the ability, like I said, the ability to read and write. So, obviously, that, like I said, that becomes a problem. So all the things that you could be denied for the sake of the preservation of slavery, right? And so again, it's like I told you. So even for some of the northern states, you get denied your political rights, voting, education. You won't have equal treatment, under the law, right? And so the thing is, at the end of the day, what was happening, or what would happen, is that you have to remove these bootstrap arguments, because the thing is that racism doesn't want to compete with you. It wants to eliminate you for the sake of the preservation of a segment of the population, right?
Sandog,
so, yeah,
I got to interject. I want to go ahead and try to combo with you because I don't want critical information lost. I'll put a link to the slave codes. I'm sorry, the Black codes, which were predicated on the slave codes that were described earlier. We need to understand that this was animated by states' rights. If you didn't catch that stream that Sandog and Gigi did on that, go back and listen to it. It pieces all of this together. What's critical about this is that when the states responded with states' rights and created this idea of Black codes, the radical Republican government came with the Reconstruction Amendments. Put a link to that there. This is going to be a central theme to understanding civil rights and this back and forth that continues to play, and the contextualization of American politics and how they have Black men at the center of it all.
facts.
There's the link right there. The Nameless Protagonist put it in the chat. That's the one to the Reconstruction Amendments. Okay. And then there's another link in the chat to what the Black codes are. Okay. And, Sandog was just describing it. And, the Nameless Protagonist followed up with the 1-2. But ultimately, these codes basically were designed to thwart any semblance of, hope that, African Americans would be able to maneuver just like white boys could, but Black men. So it's like, okay, you could be free, but you ain't free to move around the cabin. You better sit your ass down with the seatbelt on. I mean, it's the truth. I'm being gutter, but I mean, the reality is, you can't own the property you want to own. You can't conduct business the way you want to buy, the way you want to conduct it. You can't buy and lease land. You can't move freely in public spaces. So, and the funny thing about this shit is, right, this didn't apply to white women, man. I mean, one could argue, okay, well, they can't buy and lease and they can't have, man, look, they bought and leased slaves. They owned your ass. And when their husbands died, they left the property to them. So all this business about white women didn't have rights and all this kind of bullshit, they was moving freely every which way in this country, man. Real talk. It was you that was restricted. It was you that was, impinged upon in relation to your freedom and infringed upon. But carry on, gents. Carry on.
Correct. Facts. And so now, so like I said, so now when you get into, now you get into it. And so even then, right, you would have, at a time, although a bit of good was done with Ulysses S. Grant in terms of putting Northern troops in the South to kind of control things. You had a time where even the U.S. Army itself, was there helping the Southerners, maintain the black codes, right? Having black people there as laborers, right? And they even worked with the First Freedmen's Bureau, right? That would keep black people in their place, right? That would keep black people in their place. Also, during that time, they made it so that free white men could no longer marry their slaves or free their children, right? And so, now you're gonna start seeing, like, more or less your modern type laws against interracial marriage, and then you're also going to start to begin to see eventually the evolving or the use of soft power against African Americans, right? And so, in the South now, remember, the war is over. A lot of the South has been destroyed during the war. You got about what will be about maybe $3 billion worth of damage or so in today's money, give or take. And so about a quarter of the population of the white male population is killed off in the war. So again, now you have labor shortages, right? And so, former slaves, former slaves, now that they're free, right? They're working less, they're valuing, their personal time. So this is the beginning of lazy niggas, right? And so, they're valuing their personal time. The women that used to be slaves are now more or less catering to their families. And so so you would have economists who would say that black people are now starting to exhibit non-capitalistic behavior, right? Because prior to that, when they were slaves, they couldn't engage the economy under their own choice or their own will, or how to deal with it. So basically what they're saying is that, again, shout out to lazy niggas, and the fact that, now that you're free, you are less productive to feed capitalism's appetite. But
the funny thing about that, and before I even say what I'm going to say, I want to give a shout out to BGS. Thank you for your Cash App donation, bro. And also I want to give a shout out to Zavar Daniel for your donation as well. So big up to them, man. Let me give them a shout real quick. Yeah, and hit the like button, man, so we can get some people to feed into the stream. This is not titillating here, but this is informative. This ain't a whole bunch of booty chatter, which a lot of y'all niggas like to get into. You love hearing about the fucking booty chatter, okay? This is real chatter. This is the chatter about the history of your political experience in the United States. So it is what it is. But ultimately, this whole lazy nigga trope, man, you brought us over here because you ain't want to work this shit your goddamn self. Them white indentured servants was like, fuck this, we not doing this. So you came and got us and brought us over here and, made us drudge and toil to make y'all rich. But then you got the nerve to sit here and call us lazy niggas. That's for the members of the KKK that might be watching, or one of you white supremacists, white fantastical motherfuckers who don't like black people, or who feel like, niggas don't do shit but make excuses. Fuck you punk ass white boys. Real talk. I had to say that. Go ahead, man.
Okay, so so then you'll get like certain generals, right? So like General Nathaniel Banks and Lorenzo Thomas. So they would have like the General Lorenzo Thomas. So they would have something like the Banks Thomas system, right? Where black men will get offered, or people, you get offered $10 a month, right, to work, but you'll be put in, you'll get food, clothing, and medicine, but the contract was unbreakable, right? And then what they would do is they will allow, they made it possible where a lot of the white, former white slave owners, right, they could rent some of these workers, from, from these generals, right? So because at that time, remember, black people are being labeled as refugees, right? So they could label, so they could take, so what they could take us, right? And then, get you to work for them, for whatever fee it was, from the army. And the reason why I find the term refugees, or why it got me so much, is especially when you get to a little bit when we talk about the states, right? And they call Black people refugees. It kind of puts me in a position. I remember watching Hurricane Katrina when I was living in Afghanistan, and how they were calling the Black population in Louisiana refugees. And so I found that statement to be quite interesting, because it's never been, or that term to be interesting, because it's never been applied to any American citizens before that survived disasters within the states. So that was just, something of interest to me, right?
And let me add a little quick context to that too. I just put a link here so people understand what we're talking about with sharecropping. Understand that this was a legal follow-up to the response to General Sherman's special orders to offer individuals who are leaving these plantations an opportunity to have land and a mule that was essentially consistent of that class, that planter class, or caste, some people would call it, that owned a majority of the slaves. And something to understand is that the Confederate Army put a mandate where if you owned 20 slaves or more, you were exempt from the draft. So there was a sentiment in the Confederate South that if you had money, you didn't necessarily have to pay the price of that war. And so when a lot of these individuals found themselves in a position of being on the receiving end of the Union's wrath, and their stipulation to join the Union was apologizing to President Johnson, who again was the president at the time that was the vice president to Lincoln. His beef was with that planter class. And so as a stipulation for them to get in better favor of the federal government, they had to physically make their way to DC, apologize, and state that they officially lost in the war. And one of the things that they were able to do was return that right of ownership. And so the prior deeds that were established back during the 16 and 1700s began overturning General Sherman's special orders. And this is how you get the justification state by state to start renegotiating the contract or context of their enslavement, i.e. sharecropping. And this becomes a very serious thing when we get into the way a lot of those Black codes get disseminated going forward.
Correct.
Before I move forward, I want to give a shout out to Shocks 112. He says soft power propaganda, cultural influence, and indoctrination by white women, or lies of grape. We know it means rape by Black men. We need to look at white women and Black male performance in schools post-civil rights era too. True indeed. Shout out to that brother right there, man. Shout out to Giogami. He says tuition for the lesson. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And thank you so much, Amped Up, for your generous donation. Appreciate that. I got to give you a big fanfare for that one. Sorry for the disruption, but we got to honor the people who donate for the stream and who keep this kind of activity going. So thank you so much, sir. Appreciate that. Now, go ahead, man.
I'm feeling you. So again, remember what I said about studying European history, right? And kind of going back in time, something that we discussed. So maybe in the upcoming days we could talk about like the formation of the British Empire, and other empires in Europe and how they ran things. So, now kind of like, when you get into the Black codes, you have something called vagrancy, right? Which is kind of something that's taken from feudal Europe, right? Because so remember, from feudal Europe, you would have serfs, which were at the bottom, vassals, right? Serfs, vassals. What would you have? Like dukes, lords, and then all the way up to the king, right? So I'm trying to remember top of that. But at the end of the day, if you were a serf, you were at the bottom of the pool, and serfs in Europe were people who were undesirables, right? And then for the most part, they were kept, they were kind of marshaled or kept in the public spaces, right? So that way people could have access to free labor. And so one of the things that will happen is that when you get into the southern states, so Mississippi will be the first state that would get into the Black codes, and then in its entirety, all the southern states, all the way out to Texas, will get wrapped up in it by 1866, right? And so pretty much, those vagrancy laws were things that allowed them, for the most part, to keep us in servitude, right? And so when we talk about the beginning of soft power, Mississippi has a part of the Black Code. It's called an act to confer civil rights on freed men, right? And this allowed blacks to rent land only within cities, right? So effectively, like, preventing them to earn money from independent farming, right? And so every year you would have to have proof of employment, and if you didn't have proof of employment, you would, you'll be arrested. You'll have to pay your fines and everything else, and then and then you would have to pay your fines, and then basically you would end up working on somebody's plantation, right, in order to pay off the fines, in order to pay off the debt. So it was like a trick bag. It was basically a never-ending cycle, right?
So one of the things I want to highlight is what BGS just said.
Yeah.
Here in the chat, that sharecropping produced almost as much profit as slavery did, and you just got to think, man. And Dr. Tiasan Johnson and I did a show yesterday, kind of detailing the specifics of the 94 crime bill, but the criminalization of black male life is nothing new. This shit goes back to post-Civil War, directly after Reconstruction. They continuously criminalized our lives, like a vagrancy law, like we supposed to be free, right? I mean, supposed to be allegedly free, but they create all kinds of laws and policies which are designed to circumvent what the Declaration, of Emancipation is all about, right? So, I mean, basically, they're able to run circles around us by creating these fucked up ass laws, and look, I'm just saying this right now. It might sound callous for me to say it, but fuck these people laws, man. Real talk. Fuck they laws, man.
You can even add on to that combo BGS started, because at the end of the day, that was the whole reason why we had the 3/5 compromise in the first place, which helped kick off conflict later on, because what we're talking about is 3/4 of a person being able to count towards electoral college presence and more resources that can be drawn back to that state. So now that slavery is over, each of these people can now count as a whole vote instead. So what they've done is they've actually magnified the political power in the South.
Yeah. So again, so that's what I'm saying. So even when you get to states, when you get to the other southern states like Louisiana, right? So again, basically, they would and tell me if this doesn't sound familiar, right? So they would arrest black men under these ridiculous charges. The prisons, funny enough, had a surplus of black men, locked up in them that would eventually, be used as labor, right? And so even in Louisiana, man, once they disbanded the army unit, they took all of those guys and locked them up just so as a way to railroad them back into the plantation. So when you look at the title of the last two shows, when we say it's not us, it's them, they couldn't let it go. Right. So let me say that. So let's say, for example, slavery ends in 1865. Great grandpappy Sand Dog gets his 40 acres and a mule. We build our family wealth. Guess what? I'll be sitting somewhere on my family yacht with Green Gorilla and Nameless talking about how long ago this is. Right. But the fact of the matter is that, again, they couldn't let it go because that was America's original hustle, was that slave plantation. It made too much money. And even for the North itself, one of the reasons why the North compromised with it is because guess what? That's what's making the nation money, and that's where their taxable revenue was coming in from, right? So these, when you look at this entire situation, man, all of this is driven by economics. So that's why when you talk to certain historians, right? When you hear a certain historian, if they remove the morality part, if they take out the part with slaves or religion, and you look at this from a purely economic perspective, this is why you would get some historians who will argue and say that it's completely about taxation or it's completely about economics. So at least from Sandogg's perspective, the reason why they're doing this is because they're looking at it solely from those perspectives and removing the morality aspect of it, right? So when you get certain people, let's say like Thomas Sowell, from what I understand of him, right? So he's gonna talk it probably directly straight as an economist, right? And not necessarily somebody who's looking at this from a different lens in regards to religious matters or human rights. So you're going to look at it and say, this was something that was done worldwide. You know, there's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. But the problem is, and when you go back to a couple of shows, right, and other forms of slavery, other forms of slavery on Earth were not necessarily chattel slavery, and it wasn't executed the same way it was, you know, in the United States, right? So slavery in Africa doesn't take you to black codes and Jim Crow and everything else once you're set free, right? It's a completely, this is a completely different system or completely different management, you know what I'm saying, you know, that black people are living under, right? And so now, and the funny part is, it's not even funny. And I mean, ironically, right, you know, many of the southern states will reject the Reconstruction Amendments, right? So they're gonna, you know, they'll reject it, saying, you know, again, in terms of, you know, black people not being free, right? Say, you know, that African Americans themselves are not really citizens, you know, of the United States, right? And so this will be some of their arguments. And they would use that to disenfranchise, you know, black people, especially when it comes to voting, and other forms of rights that we should have been guaranteed under the Constitution, you know, after the Civil War, right? And
so before you move forward, I want to do some housekeeping real quick.
Yeah,
I want to give a shout out to Shocks 112, who says that the British Empire equals its demand for cotton. They received it from New England. They made denim jeans, indigo, and cotton. Demand for rum, sugar, they had a hand in this bullshit too. Chase gave mort to planters. So yeah, I mean, you know, look, Spain had a role to play. The Brits had a role to play. The French had a role to play. The Portuguese had a role to play. Most of Europe had a role to play in the exploitation of the Americas and the enslavement of, you know, indigenous Africans and the indigenous people here, you know, on this continent. Like, I mean, it's the facts, you know. Also, I want to give a shout out to Herb Saint, my NOLA partner. He says, to hide the solution to Black America and the betterment of black men is sinister. Thank you for the education, GG. Appreciate you, Herb Saint. Appreciate you. And also, I want to give a shout out to Ronan 76, he gave me a super sticker, so shout out to all them, man. Also, I want to give a shout out to Corbett Goodwin, who just hit me up on the Cash App. Salute to you, sir. And also, man, you know, if you guys could, man, leave your own information, you know, your Cash Apps or whatever in the chat, so, you know, brothers could, you know, hit you off too, you know what I'm saying? So make sure you do that. Please do that.
Yeah.
But at any rate, you know, go ahead, man. You know, and the funny thing is, though, you know, I'm gonna intersperse my own commentary in here in the meantime and in between time. But you know, one thing that's kind of killing me today, which is, you know, I'm making an anachronistic comment related to the timeline of which we're speaking, but it's a lot of white guys today who, you know, they have problems with woke shit, right? Like all the woke shit, all the intersectionalism and shit like this. Motherfucker, if you just would have did right by us after the era of the Civil War during Reconstruction, you wouldn't have had none of this shit to deal with. All of this shit is some shit of y'all own making. The fuckery that you're dealing with now is all predicated upon your inability to leave us the fuck alone. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And now you're going to get more fuckery. This is the chickens coming home to roost. That's how I feel about it. I don't want to hear no white boy talk about woke shit. Fuck all y'all. And this whole, your irritants with woke shit. Fuck y'all. To all the white boys that might be watching, fuck you and your criticisms of woke shit. I don't care if you get mad at seeing it on TV, none of that shit. I don't care if you mad at it to see it in politics. Y'all let the shit get out here and get to the place where it is. Because it was segregationists who fucking, a segregationist Democrat from Virginia who fucking put women into Title VII that opened up the motherfucking pathway for all of the shit you seeing right now. So fuck y'all. I'm just putting it, I had to put my little emphasis out there. I'm pissed off today, bro. You understand what I'm saying?
Let me rock with that, Gigi. Let me rock with that. Because this is the goofy part of it all. Because all it is bitch assery by definition. All they are is scared. They're scared. And what they're scared of, and we'll go ahead and put this out so you guys can read this whenever you get time. They are scared of this idea of Negro rule. We have always been the damn boogeyman. And no matter where we go, no matter what we do, no matter what bootstrapism we incorporate and indoctrinate, they come up with some bullshit reason they have to show up and destroy everything. And then turn around and blame you for having to pick the mess up. This idea of Negro rule resonates so strongly that it dominates all throughout the South and plays out on the subconscious to this day. To this day. And all you've got to do is sit down and listen to the conversations that you see coming from not just some intersectionalists that have a problem with black men, because they'll default to that SOP every day. Even divestors. We're hearing it verbatim from them. We're hearing it from a lot of apologists that want to repel from the ceiling. We're not a monolith. Really? Really? Explain this then. We've got newspaper after newspaper after media archetype after media archetype and archive breaking the same copy and paste literature down. I got another PDF here for you guys so you can take a look at some of the propaganda that was going and was brought through this entire time period. That really it helped spark this, because we need to examine the fact that media has traditionally been utilized as a tool to progress and push these attacks predominantly on black men. And when you see these cartoons, when you see these political illustrations and expressions, when you see these instances of white fear, of Negro rule, the trigger and the catalyst is almost always the image of a black man being with a white woman. It's a tired freaking theme that's going to continue to play itself over and over again, from the creation of A Birth of a Nation, which we're going to get to in a little bit, the actual literal expression, to SYSBM, and having these folks mad and trying to equate these dudes and sabotage their image, saying whatever they want under the sun. It's almost as though they just copy and pasted the literature from 100 years ago and just put it into a present font and called it a day.
Well, you know, here's the thing, though, Nameless. To all the white boys out there that might be listening to shit, you racist motherfuckers, if you are, you know, you tired of wokeness and all this shit. You feel like you're pure and you don't want to be sullied by, you know, blackness or whatever the fucking case may be. The reality is, you know, white women been fucking niggas since slavery, bruh. You know what I'm saying? It ain't no goddamn secret. We've been fucking white bitches the whole time. Many against, some of them against our will. Cause you couldn't dick her down right, huh? Your little pasty white dick wasn't doing the job. She wanted the cockstrong buck to break her back off, to blow a top off. And if she got caught, then I was raped and all this bullshit. So your women been fucking us. Period. Get over it. So your daughters, your wives, your grannies and all that shit, they been getting some black dick in their life. They been getting it. So all that shit, if that's one of the issues, you some stupid motherfuckers. Y'all stupid. And you've been fucking black women the whole while. That's how you get your quadroons and your octoroons and all this shit. So spare me all this fucking your irritants with woke shit. You opened up the pathway for it. So fuck you and your irritants. I'm just tired of hearing white boys talk about how they tired of woke shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm just tired of hearing them talk like that, man. Fuck you and your irritants. Shout out to Black Bubba, man. Appreciate your donation, man. Shout out to Judas Blues. He says, for the collection plate, keep up the fight. Appreciate your donation. And again, Shocks 112 says, oh, Lord Buford, I don't want my precious to be hypnotized by that damn black magic stick. I mean, hey, man, look. Misogynation has been occurring in this nation. And if your white women would have had free mobility, see, the whole restriction to women, that's some shit y'all was on.
Correct.
That's some shit y'all was on. Now the chicken's coming home to roost on you. Now motherfuckers want to shift the energy to us and shit. Now it's a black thing. It's an attack of white male shit and all this. Man, fuck your irritants. I don't give a fuck about none of that, bruh. I don't care how irritated you are. Personally. You got these dudes on YouTube getting mad about, like, you know, the Game of Thrones having black actors and shit like that, and the Rings of Power, because they want to live out some white pure fantasy, like where it was a world where they were only, you know, the only demographic there in isolation, splendid magical wonders and shit were occurring. Man, that's some bullshit. Absolute bullshit. I had to comment on one of them dudes' channels, and they quite big channels too. Like, this dude, like, well, you know, I'm tired of black actors in fantasy movies. Like, Europe had niggas in it.
Shout out to the Moors.
You had blacks in Spain. Like, your shit wasn't fucking pure. I mean, these white people don't even know their own fucking history. They caught up in some fantasy shit. And man, I'm just saying right now, unequivocally, it sounds, you know, whatever it might sound gutter, but fuck them people, man, and they feelings. Fuck these white boys, and they feel like they getting encroached upon. They're responsible for the emergence of this woke shit. They allowed it to happen. All to spite us. All this shit to spite us. When you could have just let us be. And acknowledge our humanity. And I ain't saying that women shouldn't have access to politics and positions. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying, like, right now, it's out of control. The shit is out of control. And the reason it's out of control is because you scared of your white bitch getting piped down, your daughter, your wife, or your mama getting some black dick in her life, man. Y'all some bitch-made motherfuckers, man. Y'all some straight bitches, man. Real talk. Y'all some hoes. I'm here to tell you. Y'all some straight bitches. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so
But wait, isn't that a good transition into getting into these racial classifications that starts this one drop rule nonsense and sets us up for what's it? Is it Plessy versus Ferguson?
correct, yeah. But even then, right? So like I said, so you know, when you're because remember, the black codes and Jim Crow are kind of, at least from my perspective, again, they're married to each other, right? They're not mutually exclusive. Right, so it's, you know, it's not a mutually exclusive thing, and so, you know, again, you get, you know, so, you know, during Ulysses S. Grant's presidency, right, so in 1870 you get the Naturalization Act, right, you know, which for the most part, secures our citizenship, right.
Hold on. Let me stop you right there. We got some clown named Nigga You Black all up in here. Let me just say this right now, man. Your wife probably had some black dick in her life. Your mama probably had some black dick in her life. Your daughter probably right now getting some black dick in her life. And you's a bitch-made white boy. I see you the type of white boy I'll smack the shit out of. And dare you to do something about it. You ain't gonna be the first white boy I done smacked either. Well, if you black, well, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So maybe you being sarcastic, but I don't play with white boys, man. I'll smack the shit out of one of them motherfuckers like Will Smith did Chris Rock. It won't be the first time I done it. Bottom line. And I don't know who this nigga you black is, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. But I'm about to ban you from my channel. You know what I'm saying? But the whole point is, here's the deal. Whoever you are, come to Huntsville, Texas and talk that shit. And I'll be the first motherfucker to put a black handprint all over your motherfucking face. Bottom line. I don't play them games with white boys, man. I never have, man. Soon as you start to look like you about to utter the word nigga, you about to be on your back. It is what it is. I'm telling you the truth, man. All right, man. Like, you know, just keep them out of here, man. You know what I'm saying? But let me I gotta do some housekeeping again. I don't play them games, bro. I don't give a fuck if I get banned or whatever the fucking case may be, or they want to take this shit down. See, black men been dealing with this shit from day one. And then they want to make us out to be a problem, like we hateful. But we've been the recipients of laws and policy directly related to our hate and to our dehumanization. And we supposed to sit back and be cool with the shit and just be quiet and listen to you bitch ass white boys, you paste face motherfuckers complain about how irritated you are about the woke shit when y'all open the path for it. Bullshit, man. Shout out to Jason Hills, man. I'm just, you know, like today I'm irritated, bro. I'm telling you the truth, man. Like this shit right here gets my blood boiling, man. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Shocks again. You know what I'm saying? I just get tired of hearing that bullshit, man. You know, and I don't think that they less than human beings or nothing like that. But if it's fuck me, it's fuck you. If it's fuck my family, fuck your family. If it's fuck my legacy, fuck your legacy. That's just how I feel about it. But proceed, man. I'm gonna stop talking, man. Go ahead.
I got you, fam. Right? And so, you know, again, and now, like I said, you know, now under the Grant administration, even space is made for black men and women, right, to join the post office, right, to get to the post office. You know, there's a ratification to the 15th Amendment, right, you know, preventing Southerners from playing with our right to vote, right, and then, you know, now you're talking about, like, you know, military occupation in the South, you know, due to the you know, the riots in Memphis and Louisiana. You would have, you know, the federal occupation, you know, in the South, right? And so, yeah, military pressure, especially in places like Georgia, right? It gets them to restore their black legislators. You know, black people are now coming out. You know, black people are now coming out again to vote in record numbers, right? Because, you know, the South, you know, those rogue elements in the South, like the KKK, and those guys that are now operating during this particular time, you know, that pressure on them is subduing the terrorism that they were imposing, you know, on the black population. And, you know, and shout out to Nameless, just like what he mentioned, because, you know, I was saving that for this, but Nameless mentioned it in the last discussion that we had, was that the Justice Department was founded just for that, right? Was to keep the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacists off our back. So the Justice Department was made, right, to deal with these people and the prosecutor, right? And so you get 470 Klan members arrested, you know, many of them, hundreds of them will flee the states, 3,000 indictments, 600 convictions, right? And so now you'll get the Civil Rights Act of 1875, right, which outlawed discrimination in public schools, transportation, you know, allow black people to be a part of juries. But again, right, fear, you know, like what Nameless said, right, fear of Negro rule, right? So this gets overturned, you know, in 1883. And so now when you start talking about the conservatives of the day, which was the Democratic Party. Again, it's a flip flop, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that, later. But again, it's how political parties will flip flop. But as of now, at this point in history, it's the Democrats that are, for the most part, the ones that are not for the civil rights of Black people, right? And so you would get statements like this, from some Southern whites, where it says the Negro troops, even at their best, were everywhere considered offensive by the native whites. The Negro soldier, imputed by reason of his new freedom, his new uniform, and his new gun, was more than the Southern temper could tranquilly bear, and race conflicts were frequent. Right? So,
hey, look, let me just say something, right?
Yeah.
So right now, I just want you to know that the Nazis basically got they whole inspiration for their fucking homicidal, genocidal regime from the American South, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, American racism gave birth to this motherfucker right here, man. You understand what I mean? American racism influenced Hitler, man. That's where they got the blueprint from.
Correct.
So then we go over there and end up fighting this motherfucker. But y'all the ones that you are the inspiration. So now they have all these movies, where they trying to fight against tyranny and shit, like they fighting against the Nazis. Motherfucker, you inspired these people. For all the white boys still watching. Nigga, I'm Black. If you're still watching, y'all inspired the Nazis. You motherfuckers, that's some evil shit. It's some sick shit. And then I know why y'all scared. I know why you don't want Negro rule. Because you don't want what happened to us to happen to you. But at the end of the day, you keep acting the way you act. That motherfucking that prophecy that you fear, it's gonna end up happening to you. You keep doing what the fuck you're doing. But let me be quiet. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so again, when we talked about soft power, right? So now, now going in towards the end of Reconstruction, right? So the Democratic Party decides, you know what, we're not gonna jump up and howl about, everything after the Civil War. We're gonna kind of veer away from Reconstruction politics, right? We're gonna do things like focus on the economy. Because remember, during that time, you would have the Panic of 1873, right? The economy isn't doing so good. People thought that, you had Republicans and others who thought that the railroads would kind of help to pull the South out of poverty, and that didn't happen. And so again, kind of look at the trick bag that we have today, right? And so now, what are you going to say? So you have conservatives that are going to come in and say, look at their policies, right? Look at their economic policies. It's trash. We're suffering. They don't know what they're doing. Again, a lot of the rhetoric that we hear right now, right? And so, the South or the Democrats are going to use that to be able to expand their base. So they're going to start talking about, again, like things about the economy, and other types of issues. And then, also what will hurt us will be internal conflict with Black Republicans, right? So you will have some Black Republicans that will start wanting to focus on individual progress as opposed to dealing with the racial inequality, that we had dealt with previously, that we were dealing with previously within the, within the Republican Party, right? And so now you would get President Hayes, right? And, and Nameless kind of brought this up. So you're at the end of Reconstruction. And so, not Reconstruction, you're at the end of Reconstruction, sorry. And you would have President Hayes where Democrats and Republicans are cutting deals about, who's going to be in Congress, who's going to be in a president's cabinet and everything else. And then you get the election you get the election of Hayes, and then for the most part, right, this will be the beginnings of not only with our own internal struggles, but this is the beginnings of kind of like the Republicans parties for the not so radical side of the Republican Party being like they're moderates and conservatives. This will be the beginnings of what will be the flip flop that would eventually have black people remove themselves, from the Republican Party, right? So this is so now you're looking at black codes, and so this now all will continue into what we call the Jim Crow era, right? And so you're talking about now, like in the late 1800s, like 1879 or so, right? You will have black people who had enough. They had enough of the drama in the South, and they're like, you know what, man, we're out of here. And so they're gonna pick up, and they're gonna go west. They're gonna go to the Midwest and the West, right? And so again, so when they, so even when they leave, right, they're still gonna see hostility from white people, and at that particular time, right, Native Americans are out there too. So there's not, even with this first migration, they're still not finding the safe havens or the prosperity or the peace that they wanted. And so, I want to kind of do a thing. So again, shout out to BGS, when you talk about the colonial society, right? American colonial society, because before Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and I have to mention this, right? Again, it was offered to us, to go back to Africa or to someplace in South America. And again, many of us, but the majority of us, chose to be American as opposed to going off and trying our luck in new lands, right? So for whatever the reasons why they had, and again, it would be more or less, I guess it will be a combination of fear of the unknown. Maybe for some people, would America make good on the funding or support for the colony? But eventually, we would decide that we would rather stay in the United States despite everything we're facing than to pick up and go to Liberia or somewhere in South America. So I just wanted to bring that up, right? You know what I'm saying? And so now, what?
No, I was just going to say that, you're exactly correct about, black people, wanting to move away from the South because it was fucked up and backwards in the South. But as they moved to the Midwest and the West, it was just as fucked up as it was in the South, if not worse. Like, some of the most segregated cities in America are in the Midwest. I don't know if you know that, but like St. Louis, Chicago, Cincinnati, like these are like, at one time they were like the top of the segregated cities, So white folks ain't all friendly in the North, in the West, and the Midwest either. These motherfuckers just as racist as these white boys down in the South, and white women as well. So, because they don't need to get left off, they also get left off. Cleveland,
Correct.
Yeah.
A lot of that is the shadow of Plessy versus Ferguson. That's where I think we can connect these dots so people can see what's really going on here.
Go ahead, Names.
Yeah.
Oh no, go ahead, Sandal, because I'll jump in when you're getting there, because you're right there.
Okay, go ahead. I thought you wanted to interject, but go ahead.
Yeah, and so like I said, and it goes back to what I was telling you now. So now, again, when we talk about terrorism, right? Lynchings are on the increase, right? So you're getting about what, almost 3,500 people lynched. Between the late 1800s, up until the 1950s, right? And so this, like, again, so we're just getting tore out the frame, just like I mentioned earlier. In 1883, the Supreme Court overturns the Civil Rights Act of 1875, right? It says the court ruled that the 14th Amendment prohibited states, but not citizens, from discriminating, right? So the civil rights reversal was devastating for us, right? And so now Southern states, they have new constitutions and voting laws designed to disenfranchise black voters, right? So shout out the poll taxes and literacy tests, and all the stuff that we have.
Grandfather rules.
Good grandfathering clause, yeah. And so all the stuff that we have brought up in previous conversations. So now what you're doing is you're adding layers of bureaucracy. So even with like I said, with the grandfather rules for white people who were illiterate, right? They were grandfathered in, right? or the poor white people that they disenfranchised before, they're now grandfathered in to vote, because they're white men. Right. And so
explain that so people who don't know what that means say, because it's kind of almost like a meme statement.
Okay.
The grandfather clause.
Okay. So what the grandfather clause was that, so prior to it, when they were attacking voting rights, right, not only was it hurting African Americans, but it was also hurting poor white people at the same time. Like I said, these policies. So they were at their voting population of poor white people were also adversely affected by it, right? And so when you get into a grandfather, like to grandfather something in, it's to kind of like go backwards in time, right? And make an exception, right? So now when you're disenfranchising black voters, but you want as many white people to vote as possible, right? So these grandfather rules now, so many poor white people could not read, right? So now you have this literacy test, right? That would eliminate a bunch of poor white people. The grandfather clause will go back and say, okay, because you're white men, and you're free and you're American citizens, right? Because remember, shout out to the Dred Scott decision. Black people now are not citizens, nor are they considered citizens by many Southerners, despite the fact that the North won the Civil War, or even despite the Reconstruction Amendments. So they're not seen as citizens, by many Southerners. And so now for the
let me put this in more simplistic terms, saying, Dogg.
Okay.
So they came up with these literacy laws, and all these laws basically that were designed and intended to prevent black people from being able to vote, right?
Yeah.
So really, the grandfather clause ain't nothing but an anti-nigger clause for real. I mean, if you want to speak quite frankly,
I know. Yeah.
However, all the grandfather clause is an exemption, asserting that new rules don't apply to specific populations or specific classes of persons.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like just conceptually, without even concretizing it or situating it, it basically is an exemption that allows people or classes of persons to continue with activities or operations that they were able to engage in before new rules become enacted into law. You know what I'm saying? So if you were able to vote and you couldn't read before, you can still vote if you can't read. But people who hadn't had the right to vote before, they're subjected to the new laws. You see what I'm saying?
That's what I wanted to highlight there, because that whole cultural precedence, because there's kind of a cultural law that's born with these ideas. And exactly. I just want to say this one part real quick, and you keep going with it. That's where we get the good old boy system from. That helps, and it's expressed in the good old boy system. Got a little link in there, in case people wonder where these terms comes from. You hear this said a lot by a lot of civil rights activists. You may not know the real origin of these terms, and it's very important because they contextualize the Jim Crow era almost to the T. And the way these modalities get put into place to marginalize black folks, disenfranchise black people, and more specifically, it disproportionately affects black men with regards to a lot of these things, and creates kind of a preference for Black women to be in these scenarios as kind of a lesser evil when it plays out as far as the modality of power is concerned. Because a lot of these rules were hitting rural and poor whites. But again, to offset that damage, it's this good old boy grandfathered in cultural precedence that lets whatever's in motion stay in motion. So when they tell you, you just should have, quote, alphaed your way through this or work harder, and quote, this is how America expresses its soft power.
Yeah. And so Sandog, continue on, but like, all it is the law. It's above the law shit.
Yeah.
Right.
But
basically, it's a way for them to dodge and sidestep the laws that they created for niggas. It's a different set of laws for niggas than there are for white boys. That's all this shit mean to me. I mean, of course, they have conceptual ways to define it, but ultimately we know what the purpose of it was, because, we don't want good old white boys to not be able to vote. We want them to be able to vote, okay? Especially when they got the right to vote, because, it wasn't until when 1840, the 1840s, when they got the right to vote full sale.
Yeah, without having property ownership, yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's bullshit laws and a bullshit, tactic utilized to prevent us from being able to exercise the franchise while they can. Because it's all about them. Now the same motherfuckers, the ancestors of these motherfuckers, be irritated of hearing the history of this shit. They don't even want to study it no more. They just want to bury it under the rug and shit. Let's not even talk about it. This is just hurting the feelings of white people and shit.
Right.
Man, fuck your feelings.
Because
that's how I feel about the white boy and white women, to be honest. Because white women, what they doing is duplicitous as fuck. They act like they wasn't a part of this shit because they didn't have the right to vote and so on and so forth. Oh, we didn't have any rights. We were oppressed just like you were. Bullshit. You own slaves. You were part of the motherfucking segregationist culture, just like these white boys were. So y'all don't get no fucking pass either. I'm just tired of these motherfuckers being irritated, and now white women have become the barometers of what the moral sensibilities on the left are supposed to be. These arrogant ass, uppity ass white bitches. Now all of a sudden they gonna tell you how poor, what women need and shit, and how they been left behind, and how fucked up the world is for them. Like I just saw Bill Burr earlier today. How in the fuck is it? Like white women in America specifically, they always fucking complaining about what they ain't got and about how fucked up shit is for them. But these bitches used to own slaves. They the second wealthiest group in America. These bitches are even complaining about the shit that gives them an advantage. Like affirmative action. They want to get rid of some shit that they taking full advantage of. This is how you know these people stupid as a motherfucker for real too. Not all of them are bright.
But the trick bag is how they take that same thing and they try to pretend as though we could take advantage of this little cultural undercurrent we're describing here. That's the whole Mr.ism from The Color Purple, and trying to superimpose and project that in the past like we could benefit from good old boy-ism. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, look,
because we're men.
Right.
Look, we already know that this shit was designed primarily to fuck black men over. We already know that the inclusion of white women was a way to offset black women being able to be included and having advantages over white women. But we definitely don't want niggas to get a foothold. Like, don't let that nigga get a breath of air. Keep his ass submerged underwater. Keep waterboarding this motherfucker so he can't breathe. That's how I take this, man. And that black people don't get it. Like, you got a whole bunch of I get that you tired of the left. The left is irritating. Like, these motherfuckers speak with forked tongues. I get it. But come on, man, stop jocking these white boys on the right. These motherfuckers ain't much better either. Now, I can understand if policy, like fiscal policy or some shit activates your sensibilities, but Come on, man. Like, let's just be honest. We got to tell the truth about what's going on in America and its history.
Yeah, there's 2 points that I wanted to make, because one of the reasons why I was explaining it the way I was explaining it, and shout out to you guys both, is because I wanted to show the hypocrisy. You know, say again, the hypocrisy of the system that we have. And so look at what you just said with conservative, like for me, right? A lot of you know that, you know, I vote Republican, etc. But I want you to look at in the history, right, that the stances of left and right in America historically have been the same. It's just a matter of who at that particular time is occupying the space, right? So the way red and blue have switched places, you know, within American culture. So, you know, eventually these things will switch places. These things will switch places again, one way or another, right? So, like, eventually, one set of people might migrate to this party, another set of people might migrate back to that party. So, when you, what I want you to see is pretty much how both sides have been unified for the most part on how to deal with you. So for my beloved Republican Party, right? Again, that was a radical side of the party, right? The moderate or the more conservative side of the Republican Party was, you know, in a sense, lockstep. Like I said, lockstep with Democrats, right? May have had the same ideas, you know, some of the same feelings, you know, yada, yada, yada. So that's why, you know, to the best of our ability, I try to encourage people not to get wrapped up in these paradigms as philosophies or as a tool or a sense to be used out of our condition, right? These things have a kind of in a sense, a short-term level of satisfaction to them. And so at some point, you know, and again, you know, shout out to what Dr. T.S.on Johnson is presenting. At some point, you're going to have to start thinking for yourself and to have your own body of politics, right? That exclusively talks to what your issues are and who we are, you know, within the paradigm, you know, of the United States. So, you know,
but let me say something to follow up on that.
Yeah.
And it's real simple. If you don't stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, what the fuck? What's your agenda? Don't tell me. Don't talk to me about what the fuck Thomas Sowell talking about. Even though, you know, I ain't knocking him. You know what I'm saying? He has a right to say what he got to say, and some of the points he makes, you know, from an abstract level make sense. But like the reality of the situation is, look, man, what's our fucking platform? Not what the white boys' platform is on either party, either side of the aisle. What's gonna work for us? If we don't even know what the fuck worked for us, and then all we do is study their talking points about what, because the average American man, all they do is watch magazine shows on cable networks, bro. And these shows aren't real journalism, man. It's a microcosmic, micro analysis of what's happening at the political level every day, all day. These people ain't, like MSNBC ain't got news, Fox News ain't got news. These motherfuckers ain't journalists for real. They're opinion pieces. These are constant editorials being spun all day, every day about minutia. I ain't got time to be paying attention to that bullshit. I personally don't. I stopped watching that shit when I was 25, 30 years old. I was like, hey man, if, you know, I would hear my father and stepfather talk about it. I was like, look, bro, if you want to learn about American politics, read some political science, man. Fuck these people. Even if it's leftist or rightist political science, it gives you an actual account of what's actually taking place in the country, as opposed to looking at this minutia shit incessantly. Because we stand for nothing, we'll fall for anything. Anything they tell us, we're going to lynch to from 1 second to the next. And one thing I want to show, which I did show last night, but I'm going to show it to y'all today just in case there's some people here who weren't here yesterday. You know what I'm saying? And then I swear to God, I'm not gonna talk for the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna let y'all hold the floor. But this, like, say for example, when it comes to being rough on niggas, particularly black men is what I'm talking about. They will band together and compete with one another about how tough they can be related to us, how they can fuck us over. So, proof of it, here's the ACLU got an article. How the 94 crime bill fed the mass incarceration crisis. What's the reason for the ramping up of mass incarceration? The 94 law shaped Democratic Party politics, the left, for years to come. Now, the 94 crime bill also included feminist gimmies, goodies, and grab'ems, like the Violence Against Women Act and all this other feminist shit. This is a promotion of it, a proliferation of it. But the bill primarily was designed to put niggas in jail. But the addendum was all of these gimmies and goodies and grab'ems for women. The acceleration of woke politics. Okay? It is what it is. So what did they do? The Democrats wanted to take away control of crime issues from Republicans. And all that really means to me, that's dog whistle politics for being tough on niggas. So they got into a bidding war to increase penalties for crime, to outdo one another, to put niggas in jail. It is what it is. They will band together to lock your ass up and to make life fucked up for you. This is what they do. Both sides. If you don't have nothing to stand for your goddamn self, you'll just fall for any damn thing. Every election cycle, we'll be going through the same bullshit narratives and having the same bullshit conversations incessantly. But, people like Malcolm X said this shit a long time ago. Don't be a political football. Kwame Ture said it a long time ago in Black Power. Hey, you're getting used. Okay? But now we hear like even intellectuals continuously pontificate about the lesser of two evils and how one side is worse than the other and how one side is racist and the other side is more progressive and they're working on the side of good and that's the meliorist party. They're really actually working to change shit. What they changing, man? What either one of them change for your ass? What? Name me the policy of the law that really actually is working to our advantage. Which one? I'm just asking. But we go off, what we go off of is who's doing the less damage at the time. Or some shit like that. Come on, man. They ain't doing shit for us, man. So let me give it some shout outs. Shout out to Spain, man. Shout out to Dogg. I'm sorry if I missed anybody. Shout out to Shocks 112 again. Thank you, sir. And shout out to MLR. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. But yeah, go ahead, man. I'm sorry. I swear I'm going to stop talking for about 15 minutes. I swear. I'm turning my mic off.
They need this heat, fam. You don't understand. Don't even apologize for what's old. All this is just balancing the equation.
Yeah, because because I'm about to, like I said, so even now I'm about to serve this tennis ball, to my partner here, Nameless, right? So again, right? So shout out to 1896, right? So now we're at Plessy versus Ferguson, right? You know what I'm saying? And so, this is where the United States, sets up the separate but equal doctrine, right? And so, again, you get a black man or a mixed black man who wants to ride the train cars in Louisiana, right? And so it's, so it's, and basically what the state of Louisiana and the Supreme Court will say, and, if the U.S. history regards it as the dumbest ruling in American history, but, it was never really overruled, until, until a later case with the university. So it took other cases to kind of quote and unquote de facto make Plessy versus Ferguson unconstitutional. You know,
And let's add a
America.
little bit of flavor to that too, because we need to understand what was going on at the time. Here is a little bit of a snapshot at this time period when we're talking about the census. And this is important because in this time period, for the majority of individuals that are classified as ADOS, most of you can only go about this far back when it comes to the census. That 1890-ish range up to the early 1900s. And this is where these classifications start getting important, where you have terms like mulatto getting broken down more specifically to things like quadroons and octoroons and stuff like this. You know, low key harkening back to what Gigi was talking about them wanting that chocolate vitamin D dispensary. This was the end result of a lot of what he was talking about. And so there again is this fear of Negro rule and the birth of the one drop rule as government policy, essentially. And so when we talk about this case of what went down with Plessy versus Ferguson, this individual was an octoroon. You've got these train cars where they were deciding and saying, you know, all right, well, black folks need to be in these designated carts, and somebody else that's not classified as black can be in these, or rather classified as white, can be in these other designated ones. And of course, you know, you already know how the distribution of resources is going to go as far as quality of life and actual attentiveness when it comes to a lot of these modalities, because we're in the middle of the black codes, states' right, brown paper bag rules, sundown towns, and all of that nonsense. And here we go with society essentially stratifying by virtue of racial classification. And I put a link in the chat to really show the verbiage so you can really see how this was being played out. So this legislation, Plessy versus Ferguson, is critical because all it's doing is flexing on the 14th Amendment. It's going equal protection under the law, but these people are more equal than you are. Go ahead, Sand Dog.
Yeah.
My God,
yeah.
man.
But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And again, right, this is, you know what I'm saying? And so this is where, like I said, so for you know what I'm saying? So for black people, like I said, at this time when you're talking about like the rug being pulled from under you, right? So again, you have migration, you're talking about separate but equal, but what's equal? Where's the money? So when people have that argument against reparations, right? So or even when you hear people say, well, for slavery, I wasn't there. And you know what? If you were to debate me on any channel, I'll give you that. But then explain the black codes and Jim Crow. Right? So if, hey, slavery was some kind of normal thing throughout human history, you know, and all of this stuff now, explain the black codes and all of this and this disenfranchisement. Because at the end of the day, like I said, at the end of the day, right, slavery is over, right? The federal government says that, you know, again, you're free allegedly. And now you have the southern states who consistently try to roll back the Reconstruction Amendments. And now, you know, unfortunately, it ends up becoming something that's more or less countrywide, right? So you got the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan, right? You know, in the early 1900s, you got the film Birth of a Nation, and in Birth of the Nation, again, you have, you know, in the movie, you got like this all Negro Congress, you know, all Negro Congress, and they're terrorizing white people and white people, and so what does this film do? So it shows black men as brutes. We're destructive to white society. You know, we're raping the women. You know, white people are living in fear. White people are being disenfranchised and they're living in fear because of us, right? And now, you know, and this is the first film to be played in the White House, right? And you got people drinking this like Kool-Aid, right? So, because for the most part, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Nameless or Gigi, I think prior to that film, I don't know if there was really across the United States, although that racism existed, I don't know if there was this kind of definitive image of black people prior to this film.
No, I think you're correct about that. Like, I mean, but not to say that there weren't stereotypes and caricatures of black people that existed, but the caricature wasn't of a rapist, brutal savage. I mean, you know, you got to look back at the literature. Like, the average notion of what a black person is more like, who was the Negro in Huckleberry Finn and shit? Like, what's the name of the guy?
That's Samboism. I call it Samboism, but I know what you're talking about. Go
so,
ahead,
you know, the average black male is perceived as, you know, like a big buck, but, you know, he is a docile, mostly harmless guy, you know, who's like a childlike man.
Yeah, that's the Sambo story.
So like what Jim Crow is actually named after, right? The minstrel shows.
Right.
Yeah, so he's like you know, just like a docile, ignorant, non-militaristic Negro ready to serve, ready to, you know, do what the white people, you know, ask. You know, a servile. You know, that was the common notion or the image of a black male prior to, you know, the proliferation of this bullshit ass movie. The first major motion picture ever created. You know what I'm saying?
Highlight that again.
Huh?
Highlight that again, because people need to understand that set the media tone in America going forward globally.
Yeah, and shown in the White House.
Yeah, that's the first major motion picture, man. You know what I'm saying? To ever exist. You know, and basically, like all of the stylistic components of motion pictures, or for the most part, come from that film. Like cutting and, you know, fading out and changing scenes and shit like that. Most of that shit came from that movie, bro. Like even the major motion picture, you know, the you know, whatever the Academy is or whatever, you know, but the Academy of Major Motion Pictures or whatever the fuck, they acknowledge it. You know, but you know, my whole thing is, man, this whole Plessy versus Ferguson established separate but equal, like Dogg said. It wasn't until 1954 with Brown versus Board of Education that the separate but equal, you know, whole notion or doctrine was overturned or overruled. So we talking about 70 years ago, bruh. That ain't a long time, man. I'm 50 years old, bruh. That ain't that goddamn long ago, man. It's my grandmother still living. She 100 years old, man. About to be in January. She was living through all this shit. The motherfuckers say this is some ancient history and shit. Like it's so old. It was so long ago.
Your parents lived through this, fam.
Man, man, look. All I can say is, man, fuck you white boys with this punk bullshit ass talk about how long ago this shit was. Fuck y'all in that bullshit conversation. Fuck y'all in that conversation. I'm here to tell you right now. Fuck y'all in that conversation about how long ago it was. And fuck you niggas who dick riding white boys who saying this shit.
Cause again, BGS saw it, right? He will be old enough to have seen it, and to have seen it in its conclusion.
Oh, it was so long ago. Like it's our fault now. Like
bullshit.
What about the 94 crime bill? What about all the other, like the Rockefeller laws and shit like that, which basically is a continuation of the punitive draconian measures like the black codes and the vagrancy laws, and you know what I'm saying, and all the other crazy ass laws they devised to basically criminalize our lives. We ain't never had a moment of rest in this bitch. And now everybody want to talk about why we're getting ahead, why can't you? You ain't got to deal with these issues. You want us to be dumb about these issues. And you don't even want us to tell you don't even want us to talk about it in the school system, at the elementary level, the high school, the secondary level, or in college. You don't want us to talk about it. Oh, just be quiet. Because you don't want to see some Negro woman in a fucking goddamn fantasy TV show or some shit. Fuck y'all, man. I don't give a fuck about your comfortability, man. You ain't let us be comfortable in this motherfucker from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I don't give a fuck about you and your little fantasy movies and shit and your woke issues and shit like that. I don't care about none of that. Y'all opened up the pathway for the woke shit. That's what I'm standing on that. I'm standing on it. So I don't want to hear no white boy from nowhere. As soon as one of them say it, I'm there saying right there to his motherfucking face, you full of shit. And everybody that knows me knows I don't bite my tongue, man. I say the shit. If the president was here right now, Joe Biden, motherfucker, if Jesus Christ was in this bitch, Mary the mother of God, I'd say the same shit. I'll say the same thing. Hold on, wait a minute, hold the phone. What you irritated for some so-called all that shit is just facade anyway. That's just some window dressing any goddamn way. Yeah. That's all it is anyway. That shit ain't really actually making no hands change or move in the basic structure of the culture that we live in. You irritated off having to see some shit. We irritated off having to live through some shit.
Facts.
Yeah.
That's the shit that fucks me up every time. They don't want to see. Oh, I don't want to see that. Fuck you, nigga. I don't want to live what I'm going through. Now, what if? And they main fear is we gonna turn around and do to them what they did to us.
Fear of
you don't want
Negro
nobody
rule.
to fuck your white ass bitches, but you want to fuck ours, if you can even call them ours.
Right.
But that's what's crazy, right? Because
and look, Lindor, I understand some of y'all are so sanctimonious, you so scared of getting zapped by a supernatural being somewhere. But I'm telling you the truth, man. Because what I'm speaking, I speak the truth when I step in the booth, man. I'm like Beanie Siegel back in the day. I'm not here to play games, man. I done been to school. Every school I've been to has been a Christian-oriented school. And I'm not a docile Negro. I'm not superstitious either. Because if God know my heart for real, if you're there, you know what I'm working with for real. All the rituals and sanctimony, that shit ain't doing nothing. That ain't saved one nigga from nothing, have it?
Man, shout out to Deuteronomy 28. God damn.
Here we are talking about what the reality is. And then, motherfuckers are, well, you can't say nothing about Jesus like that. The white Jesus y'all got on y'all damn, on your mantle somewhere. Like I give a fuck about a white Jesus, man. You know what I'm saying? Some blonde-haired, blue-eyed, effeminate motherfucker supposed to, be turning water into wine and shit. Come on, man. I mean, our people, man, like, at first we used the church as a means by which to engage in revolutionary action. Our worship was coded language for how we can escape. The hymns, the poems. Now it's just become surface value for us. There is no substance behind it anymore. They ain't even teaching it in the black church. How can it be possible that we had this coded language for escape and insurrection, and now it's just all become, how can I get to heaven and the next heaven in the afterlife? How did that even come to pass? But anyway, man, keep pushing, man. Keep going, man. Let me stop.
Look, let me put this here, because I want to go ahead and empty my super meter real quick. I've been holding on to this for a minute. This is goofy. Number one, this is where we get the American Eugenics Society really kicking things off. We've got Germany stepping into being a world power. They done already carved out Africa during the Berlin Conference. We have a response to that happening in America with the Pan-Africanist movement. And this is the time period where we're seeing the transition from folks like Tunis Campbell give way to folks like Booker T. Washington, starting industries and organizations, W.E.B. Du Bois showing up, the formation of certain government agencies like the FBI, and ultimately J. Edgar Hoover's goofy ass showing up into the picture, sowing discord, followed by Marcus Garvey's arrival and his real tangible results in galvanizing the Black community to actually start making some moves and start making some business connections overseas to start solving some of these issues, because we can start pushing back. Even in Japan right now, the Meiji era is going on, and they're becoming a global superpower using the same model of industrialization that America used to put themselves into a better posture so that they can start participating in the global conversation to acquire resources. And all throughout this narrative, we got this idea of borrowing and misunderstanding Darwin's theory of evolution and evolution of species, and this idea of social Darwinism to justify what we talked about with this whole separate but equal doctrine, giving way to individual racial classifications to separate them out of fear that we're just going to cause a downward destruction of human beings and having undesirables. This is where this language comes from. The birth of that and the way that gets put forward to enforce the legislation and ideas that are created with the Jim Crow era and these concepts of racial etiquette, which I'm about to get to, starts with racial covenants. Racial covenants. I'm going to put another link in the chat right here. Racial covenants. And you need to understand, I'll go ahead and just read it straight up. These are clauses that are put in mortgage and deeds that essentially allow for individuals to acquire property rights, but under a stipulation that they can't belong to a particular racial group. I'll read the highlighted here. Quote, racial covenants served as a legally enforceable contracts. And go back to Plessy versus Ferguson. They stated that the ability to discriminate by way of color is not a violation of the Constitution or the civil rights legislation because they're classified as contracts. And that's the back door they could use to get around that BS. Quote, racial covenants served as legally enforceable contracts. They stipulated that the property had to remain in the hands of white people, and they had to run, and they ran with the land, which meant that it could be enforced in perpetuity. Anyone who dared to challenge this ban risk of forfeiting their claim to the property. So even if you tried to bring someone over, if you married someone, if you did anything with regards to having someone that was classified as non-white and especially Black, I don't care if you fit under any of those modalities as quadroon, octoroon, or anything as related or pertaining to the one drop rule, including that Asiatic classification, which is in there, you forfeited the chance of losing your property. And this was green lighted across the entire spectrum, not just in the South with the Black codes, but all throughout America in particular, and especially outside of these newer territories. So we're talking about middle America, these places where these industrial cities are starting to form. It goes on and it'll even explain some of that. Quote, premises shall not at any time be conveyed, mortgaged, or leased to any persons of Chinese, Japanese, Moorish, Turkish, Negro, Mongolian, or African blood or descent. This was straight up eugenics language. And this right here gets used as the combo point or combo positioning to lead us into redlining. Why is redlining important? Because here we go with the hypocrisy. This is what pisses me off about the bootstrap conversation. What happened in the 1930s? And I'm not talking about anything leading up to the war. The biggest event in history that everybody in America always talks about, the Great Depression. And what was the response to that? New Deal legislation. And if you don't understand what the New Deal legislation was, it was the government's attempt to offset and encourage middle-class America to buy housing. And so they created the Affordable Housing Act. Take your time, look at this mess. Affordable Housing Act. It's through this Affordable Housing Act that they made mortgage rates more accessible to people so that they could purchase loans and get a house. This is the birth and the idea of the American dream. Now, I want this to be clear. I don't care how you flip it, twist it, and turn it. Black America didn't get their access to this legislation. Everybody else did. Everybody. Everybody. I don't want to hear a goddamn about any sort of handout concept. And if you do, you're David Duke speaking. You're Klan talking. That's Klan talk.
Man, look. That's we talking about how they look at us versus how they perceive themselves. See, they'll take any fucking handout they can get.
Facts.
They'll take any goddamn handout they could ever get. They ain't turned down them goddamn housing loans. They ain't turned down them motherfucking GI bills. They ain't turned down the Homestead Act.
Nope.
They ain't turned down none of that shit. But even black people will be like, we don't deserve no reparations because we'll fuck it up.
Shut your goofy ass up with that. Man, look, go ahead, Gigi. My God.
I'm telling you what it is. Black people, man, are operating from a whole bunch of ideology, bruh, that's been fed to them by white folks. And just in case you know what you don't know, all throughout this, the Klan has been operative, right? The invisible empire, right?
Facts.
Who do they claim to be acting on behalf of?
Your boy.
Who?
Oh,
I'm
man.
asking the question. I want to answer to the question. Who do they claim to be acting in behalf of?
The Klan?
Yes.
White women.
No.
No,
I'm
Jesus.
talking about, Go ahead.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
I mean, that's their whole entire spiel. They didn't copy and pasted that whole thing. They'll stand there bold-faced and tell you we are law-abiding Christians, blah, blah, all of that goofiness. And you'll hear a lot of that.
What did they burn, man? What did they burn?
A damn cross. Man,
What was the religion of black people before being enslaved and brought over to the Americas?
I don't know, depending on what part you went, because the Congo kind of sold out a little early thanks to the Portuguese. But aside from that, we had traditional African religion and Islam.
What's the traditional African religions? Not to say we got to follow them, but I'm just saying, look, man, you don't want to. First of all, I've been to Catholic schools my entire life. And I'm getting back into this sideboard just to make a point. Okay? I done studied history. I done went to school with people studying to become priests and reverends. So I don't give a fuck about the sanctimony, man. I don't. I don't care about God might be about to smite me down from 1 second to the next. I'm not concerned about it. If you're scared, go to church, man. But just don't go to Creflo Dollars, because all he gonna do is get some bread out your pocket. All they gonna try to do is grift you and sift you. So at the end of the day, man, look, this is a Christian nation, right? Ain't it?
So we've been told.
Mm-hmm.
But as we learned, right?
They were the ones who authorized the annexation of this land to begin. Who commissioned it? Under whose authority? The Roman Catholic Church,
Pope.
man, issued papal bulls about the colonization of the Americas, man. I'm keeping it 100. Now, if that's the institution you trust, that's where you get all your salvation from. I think you might need to, you might want to reflect and reevaluate that. Because it's the same, because look, all the Protestants, and not to say that there's no value in any of it. You can believe what you want to believe. I ain't here to knock nobody's faith. But don't play no sanctimonious role with me about what I need to guard my tongue about. That's between me and God, right? At the end of the day. But we're talking about the reality of lives lived in America who just so happen to not be white. And I'm being emphatic when I say I'll tell the truth anywhere. I'll say it in front of anybody. I'll profess it in front of Allah. How about that? I'm not here to play games, man. I'm here to tell the unadulterated truth. Don't care if you like it or you don't like it. But I'm not here to play games with theological figures, man. Because at the end of the day, ain't nobody's hands left clean. Everybody dirty up in this motherfucker. But these restrictive covenants, let's get back to it, man. At the end of the day, Why are Negroes poor and don't have homes and shit, and they are transitory population, constantly renting and shit like that? Why does the average American that's black have only between $5,000 to $8,000 of wealth to pass on to their progeny? While the average white family got somewhere between what? 70,000 to 100 to pass on to theirs?
Correct.
And then everybody talking about, well, I got a good job. I got me a good job. Got a good job. You ain't got no money saved up. I got me a house. You ain't paid for that motherfucker yet. And the value of the property constantly decreasing because you live in it.
Shout out to Redlining.
When you live, look, if you move into a white neighborhood, I done seen it happen. I done seen it. In my city, St. Louis, Ferguson and all them places used to be white. Absolutely positively white. Till a couple of black folks started to move in the neighborhoods, bought them homes. Guess what ended up happening? White people, they call it white flight. They ended up moving elsewhere. So guess what happens to the value of the property? Down and down and down and down and down it goes. Because you don't bring value with you related to their whole schema. You destroy property value. There goes the neighborhood. So at the end of the day, these white boys take handouts. Them motherfuckers wasn't turning down handouts during the New Deal, was they?
$5 Indians.
They wasn't turning down no cheese, no soup, no crackers. They ain't turned down housing. It wasn't until FDR, man, walked into the poorest areas of white America. They didn't have running water and shit like that. No electricity, nothing. These motherfuckers was living like you would consider to be a second or third world country. They subsidized the infrastructure of this nation and improved the quality of the average white person's lives, the immigrants coming into this bitch. But they never invested in us. Because most of them New Deal programs, we wasn't able to access them either.
Facts.
Them motherfuckers telling us, bootstrap it. Oh, you niggas ain't working hard enough. Huh? We ain't working hard enough. Oh, you just a shiftless nigger. Really? And what Nameless was saying is correct, man. You could buy a house cheaper than you could pay your rent.
Correct.
Who wouldn't do that? Oh, we get a brand new house? Like Ward and Cleaver? Like Ward and Cleaver in June? I want that. But they made them sign the restricted covenants when they got it.
Correct.
So I don't want to hear no white boys, no white women, no nobody talking shit about how irritated they are and about handouts. I don't want to hear that shit either.
But it gets better, Gigi. It gets better. When we actually look at redlining and the way that money that's being handed out by this New Deal legislation, specifically that Affordable Housing Act and all of its revisions, they are getting a means by which they can optimize the kind of housing districts that they can hand that money out. And you've got certain green areas that are really conducive for it, that the government is more so willing to provide funds for. And then you've got red line districts that are seen as less quote, credit worthy, and they're less willing to assess. If you wonder where the origins of the credit system come from, a lot of it started here. It was another form of that good old boy system, only it was codified in color, using those racial covenants as a backing, inspired by eugenics. If you begin looking at who's allowed to and who isn't, you start drawing those lines parallel to race and what you see with racial etiquette, the brown paper bagging. For those that don't know what racial etiquette is, we'll go right here. Right here. Racial etiquette. I'm not even going to read this bullshit because you done heard it already. And what upsets me is people use a lot of this language to this day. Yeah, boss. What's going on, boss? Man, regardless, it isn't until, like we said earlier, going back to trying to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson. What was it? 1954 with Brown versus Board of Education, that we start getting a little bit of a precedence to demonstrate that this is not even right. And then it's not even into the 70s that a lot of the damage from the redlining finally gets overturned. Some of it was supposed to be put forward with the Equal Housing Act that was done right alongside the Civil Rights Act of 1964 later on, after the hijacking of Title VII. It adds that much more BS to that scenario because a lot of the money that was supposed to go towards that everybody else in America got, that, they're bootstraps, in quote. Everyone else got it, and then still black men are getting blackballed and blackbarred and redlined from it because everybody else is getting a double dip into that money that's set aside for it. Black men still not able to get access to that mess, and black households in general, but they had some effort to make the projects with the stipulation of you can only have one source of income there at a time. And BGS did an excellent documentary breaking down how a lot of that housing ended up playing out. Shout out to the Moynihan Report. Shout out to the Kerner Commission. All of these things play out to this day. Some of y'all were born when that was going around. Some of y'all grew up in these projects that were built as a result of that. There's no amount of bootstrapism that's going to help you address a systematic problem, especially when everybody else has had a head start before you did. And just because, numerically speaking, a Pareto distribution, a Dorado distribution number of us manages to do it, it's not because they, quote, bootstrapped it on their way there, or they have some sort of intrinsic, better culturalized ideology of making it happen. Because time after time, we can see other groups of people showing up here and they are going through this process much smoother. And we've been here since goddamn day one and can't do it. There's something going on. And it is not because, quote, people aren't trying hard enough and multiplying by zero hard enough to make it happen. It's systematic interference such as this. It's not an excuse. It's a statement of facts. Go ahead, Sandog.
You need to start your jeans and wear loafers and a button-up shirt. That's what you need to do.
Apparently.
Look, man, like that's the whole point. And like for people out there in the chat and people who are going to listen, that is the whole point of this discussion, right? In terms of changing the narrative. Because here's the thing. If you don't understand how states, institutions, policies influence culture, right? Because again, like for me, I work in trade. So because I work in trade, I have to understand treaties, laws, various types of tax laws, right? So I have to understand the trade treaties, which affects the customs, what I could take in and out of the country, what I could trade there, again, so on and so forth. So for what I do now, it's all about watching policy, right? And what a lot of people don't understand is that, again, institutions, treaties, policies, all of this stuff affects the environment, and whatever affects the environment is going to create a culture, right? So, and in order to change a culture, you have to effectively change the way that people live. So let's say, for example, to bring prosperity, to African Americans or correct those wrongs, do you know that you will have to effectively change the way that America operates? So now, if you work at McDonald's, I think McDonald's is worth $175 billion now, right? And change, right? And you're working at McDonald's making $11 an hour and barely getting by. And then you have guys who will be from my side of the house who are fiscal conservatives, talking about, well, if McDonald's paid you more, that's going to hurt the company and that'll actually make less jobs. Well, if you want to know why that is, shout out to that slave plantation, because that slave plantation is the framework or the model that will eventually get you locked in factories, right? Jim Crow and everything else, if you're poor and white, that eventually is the reason why, if there's a better school in another district, your kids can't go there because you don't live in that zone, right? And so all these things are things that will ultimately, as Green Gorilla has highlighted, these things are in various ways are ultimately things that will come back to bite you in the ass, right? The African Americans that you fear needlessly don't even have to lay a hand on you, because at the end of the day, the love of money or greed, all these things, they don't have racial loyalty, right? All of this stuff knows no bounds. So like what the Bible will say, right? When the Bible refers to the Antichrist or the beast, for example, right? The beast is representative of a power or system that is out of control, right? It's out of control. You can't reel it in. You can't reel it in and you can't stop it. It's just there. And so the thing is that what you have to learn, or what I would like for you, to get out of this series is what happens ultimately when you put money and profit in front of humanity, right? This is what this stuff kind of like all boils down to. And so like on the next one, if you guys happen to be free, maybe we could do the next one 2 Fridays from now. You know what I'm saying? It'll be old Sand Dog's birthday on the 21st of October. You know what I'm saying? So if if you guys happen to be free and we can do it, and then we can talk about, just like how I always do an intro or a recap, right? So on the next one, I'm going to go a little bit further into the material disenfranchisement of Black people. And then we're going to go into the latter parts of the civil rights era. And as you go through this journey, through the civil rights era, to the war on drugs, to what's happening with fentanyl now and everything else, it seems like for whatever reason, whatever is running America or controlling it, the decisions that it makes are incompetent, because every decision that it makes is something that you have to come back and deal with later, right? So again, when I was a young kid sitting at home, right, I saw the Taliban hang out with Ronald Reagan, right, because they were freedom fighters, right? And now I'm 22 and I got to go fight them. What happened? You know what I'm saying?
Man,
Shout out to the Bush family. Go ahead.
Let me just say this, man. I can't speak to, everybody Black, because most Black people are sheep, man. I just hate to say it, but it just is what it is. But I want you to think about this, man. In America, they've created this racialized tension. They've developed, based upon their own laws, their policies, and their social interactions with people whom they, label as Black. They've created these hostilities, and we're just here, living amongst them. I mean, to the tune of millions. That's a disaster. Like, that's a disaster waiting to happen for both parties, both populations of persons. Yeah. And their numbers are dwindling. It's not like they're replenishing. It's not like they're reproducing, like they're fruitful and very fecund. It's not as if their numbers are swelling right now. Okay? So you're opening up the way. You're creating a path for further tension later on down the line. I'm just observing this. And you're creating bad will, not goodwill, because you're not making good faith attempts to redress what you know are some deep-seated historical injustices. They know it. But here we lie in your midst. You still haven't let go of your old ways. And even though you create veneers, appearances of progress, we're beginning to learn how you're playing the game. You know, like, I mean, just going back to what you and Dogg said, Nameless. Look, think about when the Homestead Act was actually enacted in the United States. Think about like when it was. Okay, if my memory serves me correct, when was the Civil War over with?
We were told
1865.
1865.
The Homestead Act was passed in 1862. The Homestead Act didn't end until 1970, bruh.
Right.
The Homestead Act did not end until the 70s, man. The 20th century.
You took my thunder for the next intro, but that's facts. Super facts. Yeah.
So I'm not gonna steal no more thunder from you, bro. We just going
into come on, man. I'm joking, but this is it goes back to, and for those of you in the chat, I'm sorry if I'm like a little long-winded or things at times, but for me, and shout out to Nameless and Gigi for helping me do it. I just want to articulate to you guys, like I said, again, the duplicity of it. And then, like I said, when you look at the time frame, so look at everything from what formed America, like what Nameless said, right? You have corporations. America doesn't become a country really until after the Civil War, right? So you got all of these factions with different corporate interests that are involved.
A corporate federation, so people can research those two words independently and make sense of it.
Correct. So again, and shout out to the War of 1812 for even adding to that point, right? So now, like I said, so you're going from the head right system of the indentured servitude, right? So if you're your average white male, you understand how they already feel about you, right? And then for us, you go into harsher sentences and everything else, then finally into slave codes, right? And then you're going to go through slavery and you're going to walk out of slavery into the black codes, right? Then you're going to, and from the black codes, right? Again, the favorite term of the day, they're going to grandfather you into Jim Crow, right? And so, and now you're going to go to Jim Crow, but the issue is that even by the time Gigi goes to school, right, you're still in the process of desegregation, right? So you're talking about what? So desegregation happens in 1954, but still in the 60s, you have people pushing back against it, right? You have people pushing back against it in the 60s and the 70s. So ultimately, by the time you get to the early 80s, right, desegregation is still happening. Matter of fact, in my previous relationship in 1991 in Wedowee, Alabama, right, they wouldn't let an interracial couple go to the prom. And this is in 1991. Right? So
that's crazy, bro. That's crazy.
You have to understand, man, how this shit is culture. Like, so there will be postcards of us hanging from trees with children watching. You have to understand how serious this is and how ingrained it is. And even back in this earlier conversation, although we touched on it, right, how even the northern states had black codes or also, for the most part, all of them enacted Jim Crow laws and segregation, followed follow Plessy versus Ferguson. And then when black people do leave the South, again, who are they? They're met by angry whites and hostile Native Americans. And so everything that you're talking about, housing and all this stuff, and it'll be in my intro when we come again. And so now when we leave the South looking for employment or fleeing terrorism, right, now you get the beginning of suburbs, right, because people don't want to live in the cities with us. Right.
And look, that's what they did, bro. Like, anybody can tell you. And at one point I was going to do a study on this, man, because, the suburbs are actually fucking the environment up, man. Did you know that?
What's funny? I watched the documentary, GG, on how they're saying that the suburbs, like the whole concept of it is goofy, it's not cost effective, and it's not sustainable.
The suburbs, just do a Google research, or a Google search rather, on the negative effect or the impact that the suburbs has on the environment. Now, we all know that the suburbs, quite frankly, it was a means by which to further the practice of segregation.
No.
I mean, like, that's just what it is. The suburbs were a way to enfranchise and subsidize white life apart from black people. So they are responsible. Racism is responsible for the destruction of the environment on a global level. This shit is crazy.
Yeah.
You got to start like connecting the dots. At one time, I was going to do a research paper on that, but my focus changed. However, one of the things that you got to be mindful of is even though there are laws on the books that prohibit or proscribe racist activity, that's de jure, okay? But de facto, America is almost as segregated as it ever was.
Yeah.
Facts.
And yeah, there's intermixing. I mean, you have a cultural change, but it's not necessarily leading to an alteration of residential practices. It's happening, but there's a difference between what's been mandated through the court system and what people are actually doing on a day-to-day basis and how they act and interact with one another on a more visceral level. Okay? Now, I mean, black people always had interrelations sexually with white people. It's been going on since slavery, okay? And even before the discovery and the colonization of the Americas, okay? It's been happening since, the Roman Empire, okay? It's black people have been having sex with white people from time immemorial, okay? But at the end of the day, America, it doesn't want to pay its bill, man. And right now, the promise is that it's becoming a more liberatory nation because of all of the inclusion that's being granted to women and gay people and shit like that. That's the that's the campaign, right? The propaganda. But ask yourself a question. What is changing in the basic structure of American culture, man? Are there any different kind of distributive measures being put into place because women are in, offices and positions? Are they radically or substantively changing the basic structure of the culture in which we live? Or are they just playing musical chairs and saying, I want to sit in the spot that a white man, I want to be the white patriarch now?
They're skin changers. That's all this is, fam.
It's like playing musical chairs. You're not really changing the game. You're not playing a different kind of game. You want to be included in the game so that you could be one of the persons who are left holding a chair while somebody else is standing up when the music stops. And
That's what I'm talking.
the next thing I'm gonna, like, apart from you guys, I'm gonna talk about, have an interesting article. I'm gonna just share it briefly because it's time for us to close out. We're at the 2-hour mark, and thank you, brothers, for coming here and dropping the gems that you have. I think one of the things I'm gonna do is have a discussion about this article here. Can you see that? Can you see it?
Yeah, it's readable.
Let me make it a
You
little
can
bit.
blow it up or go in closer if you can't. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So this is an article. Why doesn't the United States have a European-style welfare state? Like a single-payer healthcare system.
Yeah.
Or, like a livable wage type of deal. You know what I'm saying? Like where every citizen has the capacity to have decent housing and shit like that.
Shout out to Sweden.
Why not? And this is a paper written by Harvard professors. It's supposed to be one of the greatest places of higher learning. But I think that this article actually hits the mark. Because Europe distributes more across its populace than does America. What's the reason for it? I ain't gonna let the cat out of the bag, but you already know the answer. You already know the answer.
Facts. You know what I'm saying, Gigi? If you'd only get on a boat and leave, we'll be in heaven.
Bruh, the reason, just like Nas said in that song, "If I Ruled the World." And it was one line that stood out to me, man, the first time I heard the song. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, friends, how many of us have them beat,
Yeah.
And he said, you could be poor or rich, have all the chips, don't nobody want a nigga having shit. If I ruled the world and everything in it, sky's the limit. I push a Q45 infinite. But the whole point is, nobody wants you having shit in America. They want you to be destitute. They'll go so far as to, you ever heard the song, to cut your nose off to spite your face?
Yes.
Shout out to Napoleon.
They'll cut their noses off to spite their faces before you get ahead. They'll handicap themselves. They will hamstring themselves to prevent your ability to flourish, to function, and to thrive. And that's a problem. But it's a bigger problem. I can't, I can't speak for the intelligence of the average white person, man, but, this honorific status, it was Nixon, or was it Lyndon Baines Johnson that said, as long as the niggas, as long as a poor white man thinks he's better than a nigga, we can do anything.
That was the Nixon administration. That was Nixon. Shout out to the Southern strategy.
And now you got black conservatives that say, oh, that wasn't really a thing. States' rights, baby.
They can miss me with every piece of that.
And I ain't mad at conservatives. I'm just saying, man, come to me with something different than dog whistle politics, man. And Thomas Sowell with Milton Friedman's hand all the way stuck up his ass. I'm just saying, I've read damn near all of Thomas Sowell's books, read Walter Williams' books, I've read Milton Friedman. I know about the Chicago school, I don't have a problem with dealing with,
How come I'm not meeting these black conservatives? How come I don't get to meet them?
Fam, it's because you overseas, dog. You need to get on Twitter, and that's where the goofiness pops off, man. I swear to God.
I'm just saying, even when
he talking about in the social space. He talking about on social media.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Go on Twitter.
Yeah, but like I said, even in YouTube and the other panels that we're in, right? I don't, like you guys tell me that these guys are around and that they never show up. They never show up.
Here. They have broadcasts very regularly. Hop on the hot spots that are in the space and you'll hear them come up. And, you know, it's the Officer Tatum talking points. And I think all of us here have seen what it is. We're done with it. We've already pointed and triangulated the origin of the rhetoric. Again, bullshit in motion stays in motion till greater bullshit acts on it. So they want to, like we said earlier, they want to complain about the wokeism, but the whole reason why the wokeism is there is because of their goofy behinds.
Yeah, because
I mean, they shouldn't have co-signed the Title VII hijacking, and we would have been just fine. They should have left us alone when we tried to autocorrect and address our own issues. Again, what was the name of the Black Panther Party? Was the Black Panther Party for Black Panther Party for
Speak it to him.
Self-defense.
Yeah.
Self-defense. Back to the theme. It was not us, it was them. Every single time goofiness pops off, every scenario you see us as a group, we only act in self-defense so we can be left alone, so we can go back to being damn human. That's all we want. Almost to a fault. Almost to a damn fault. All we want to do is be left alone and do this citizen game. Because we want to see our families win. We want to see people around us win. But they can't leave it alone. They can't, and they won't, because they have demonstrated their fear. Shout out to the White Declaration of Independence. You want to know any aspect of what's going on and why? We already highlighted it there. If you want to see more aspects of what's going on, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing made an excellent book called The ISIS Papers. She can break all of that down to you with napkins, crayons, and construction paper. Get you a copy if you haven't already and listen to her lectures. That's why the intersectionalists can't stand her. If you want to know more about that, go take a look at what I call Sword Form 1, but it's called Social Dominance Theory. It breaks all of that down. That's all you need. Disrupt this idea of intersectionalism, and maybe we can cover that with, you know, Co-Intel Pro next time we have a meeting with this, whenever everybody can be here. And again, it's just more facts and statement of facts. And understanding that we're not out here complaining about bootstraps, assaulting or attacking anybody. Everybody has their issues of crime, punishment, or whatever they do. It is not Black people's job, and Black men in particular's job, to solve the human condition. But we have got statement and receipt upon receipt of continually being fucked with for no reason. We don't start nothing, but we do everything we can to end that mess. And when we do, all of a sudden, they start editing the clip and show when we finally deal that last blow and call us an aggressor. Because we got this rhetoric that has the cultural inertia going all the way back to the Reconstruction era. And we've got things like the halo effect and the devil effect going on, all this cognitive bias painting us as villains. And we got the anchoring bias that pretty much says, you know, you get it. It's what the basis of the Dogg test was for. That actually has helped. That helped us get Brown versus Board of Education passed. I think they did a recent reintroduction of that study. What was it? Anderson Cooper that did it in 2011. These little 3, 4, and 5-year-olds were still operating on that nonsense with the Dogg paper bag test. What the fuck we supposed to do about that?
Man,
this was not us, it was them.
Hey, look, man, you know, at this point, you know, all I can say is we got a lot of work to do. I know sometimes it seems like we're speaking in an echo chamber, and for the most part we are, but, you know, and I really don't use a lot of graduated terminology. I use some of it, but I try to make it palatable to the layperson so that it doesn't come across as, you know, what can I say, esoteric, arcane, like it's incomprehensible. I try to make it as plain as it can be made. And yes, I am rather colorful in my expressions. You know, I go off, I emote, but at the end of the day, I want you to have this information the same that I do. I want you to, you know, be able to think outside of the box, because at the current moment, you know, there's a narrative about who's progressive, who's not, who's working in behalf of justice, who's not, who hates people, who doesn't hate people, who's working, you know, in order to advance the interest of justice, who's not. And almost, you know, at every discussion, you know, especially in social media and elsewhere, you see us under attack for a whole host of reasons. And, you know, ultimately they want to silence us. They don't want us to get our word out there. Or if the words do get out there, it's always predicated upon the most recent kind of thinking. It's not, which is not even historiographically sound. It's all ideologically based, all based on new concepts developed within the last 30 years about what justice entails and what inclusion entails. The history going back to Reconstruction is, for the most part, it's left off the table.
Intentionally.
Correct.
So I want people to be mindful of, the arguments that they accept, principally because they get their arguments from mainstream media and they're basically utilizing the talking points of people who really don't mean them well. Like I recently saw that Kanye West and Candace Owens were wearing White Lives Matter t-shirts. Not that I have, something against white people being able to live. But I mean, come on, man. Like we already know the truth behind the phenomena that gave rise to the phenomenon called Black Lives Matter. It's basically the extrajudicial killings of black men. And not to say it doesn't even happen for white men. It happens for them also. I mean, they get killed more than people in Europe do. But the question is why? Because there's the edification of this humongous militaristic police type state that for the most part was, recruiting conscripts to keep the black male Negro population in line. So it has a spillover on them too. They get shot and killed in the street too. Because you've created the apparatus that will ultimately end to the infringement of your rights as well as a white male citizen. But don't ask me to be sympathetic for a white guy getting shot by the police when you got black people 2 to 3 times more likely to be shot and killed by the police. And also, after you get locked up for shooting other people, they take you to Burger King and shit. Can you imagine me killing like 20 motherfuckers and then like white dudes or something? And then they taking me to White Castle or some shit? Look, I'm extra hungry, guys. I really, I need some cheese fries before I go to prison today. I'm really fatigued. I'm starting to get a headache. Can you imagine it? They are killing motherfuckers for selling loose cigarettes and shit. They are like choking the shit out of motherfuckers and giving niggas heart attacks for selling loose cigarettes, man. Literally. They're killing motherfuckers for playing with water guns and shit and pulling their cell phones out of their pockets.
Or their car when they asking for the registration. I know you saw that gas station pull over, which was crazy.
Oh, we don't like your oogity boogity music, nigga.
Man.
I'm just saying. Not to say it doesn't happen to white guys. It happens to them too. But if they hadn't created this humongous police state, which was designed to be tough on Negroes, primarily, it's a whole bunch of different directions that white people could have gone in this country. Quite frankly, if they were smart, they would have integrated the black and the Latino population absorbed them into their own population. Pronto is what they should have done. Like the Brazilians did, the Cubans did. Not to say that there wouldn't have been any racial tensions at all, but I mean, for crying out loud, man, these people have a race problem. They have the problem. Yeah. Black people love white people. I mean, that should be abundantly clear. We like their phenotype. We like their hair follicles. We like the strain of their hair. We like everything about these people, man.
Yep.
He got good hair. Look at his hair, good, because it looks like a white person's or some shit. Oh, she's beautiful because she has the features of a white person.
Oh, Gigi, wait till you see me after I put that pink lotion in, fam.
Oh shit, here we go, bro.
Oh shit,
here we go, man.
We got to pitch in to get the Sand Dog S Curl juice spray. You know what I'm saying?
Man,
Give him
this
a little
motherfucker-
spray bottle, dog.
Man, he about to get that James Brown, that count.
Man, my man car seat finna be mad as hell.
Man,
Your head
hell
less
yeah,
finna
gonna
be-
crack and shit at the top. You know what I'm saying? Only black people's cars look like that shit, don't they? They gotta motherfuckers be rolling with the tile in it and shit. Man,
Right,
look, I came from. I grew up in the '80s, bro. I was out when motherfuckers was putting pink rods in their hair, man, trying to get them luster curls popping.
I'm gonna tell you something right now.
Afro
I'm
sheen,
telling
dog.
I'll tell you, James Brown and Al Sharpton are about to be jealous. I'm telling you.
Shit, you know, you about to go Drew down on them, huh?
I'm telling you, man. I'll be like Snoop, ain't nothing but I'm talking touching the shoulders. I'm Black Jesus in y'all, man.
Oh, you ain't about to do an
Ice.
Ice-T. Ice-T said, you know, I got my hair palm on my shoulder, it lay. What was that, 6 in the morning or some bullshit like that? I can't remember that song.
My man finna be barred from every
hey,
lifting bench in the country.
I'm about to kill him.
Hey, bro, look. All I know is, we every time it seems like we're taking 2 steps forward, it seems like we're taking 6 steps back. And one of the things that I've always wanted to articulate was the fact that, yeah, we have a lot of legislation on the books that's supposed to circumvent some of the problems that we have. But I mean, when you include other groups of persons who haven't had as rough a ride as you have, and then you basically declare the very persons who were subjected to some of the most, vicious, violent actions, then you flip the script and then you make them the criminal and the source of social, evil. How do you deal with that, man? I mean, we're still dealing. I mean, I've literally dated women, man, who were like, "Oh, you on that black stuff?" Like, you remember that song that Nas had? I love Nas as an artist, man. It's called "Black Girl Lost."
Yeah, man.
That's my jam right there, man. Black. Oh, look, there goes a black girl lost.
No reason.
But before the song comes on, there's 2 girls having a conversation about different dudes and shit like that. I hope he ain't on that God body shit. That go back to Africa shit.
That, yeah.
I've literally, walked, the festivals and shit like that and seen like all kind of black literature, like from the Afrocentric movement. And the woman would be like, "Oh, that's that black shit." Oh, like you, nigga? You reduce a lot of these motherfuckers think they honorary white people, man.
Shout out to that one chick who, what's her name? She just started a damn OnlyFans. Pulled that nonsense.
Bro.
I don't even remember her name. She was an NAACP.
Bro, I can't tell. I have never and will never
Rachel,
have an OnlyFans account. I'm
right,
the type of
Rachel
nigga, man.
chick.
Look, we got strip clubs in St. Louis. One was called Soft Touch. The other was called Pink Slip. Man, I'll go in the motherfucking club and keep ordering beers and smoking and drinking in that motherfucker and will not spend a dime on none of the motherfuckers because I'm just there kicking it with the homies. They got the best chicken wings in the world. Well, you want to dance? No, ma'am. No, thank you. Appreciate it. Holla at you.
Facts.
Yeah.
No thanks, but no thanks. I ain't trying to, I've never had it in my mind that I'm going to pay for sex. I just don't have the mentality like I have to pay for it. I just don't.
I'm just saying the irony, Gigi. She gets to get all of these benefits off the strength of claiming she black. And then turn around and does this, and her base is probably going to be predominantly black men.
Oh, Rachel Dolezal is who you talking about? Is that serious?
Yeah.
She got an OnlyFans?
Her OnlyFans, dog.
You gotta be fucking kidding me, bro.
I didn't know that.
You have to be kidding me, bro.
I swear to God.
You must be. Surely you kid, huh?
Fam, all my honor, dog. The irony. Fam, I'm telling you, she's low up, she's hard up. She went ahead and pulled that card, and the ultimate irony is now taking place. It's like a double entendre irony, poetic justice sort of scenario. I don't even know how to describe that situation.
You gotta be kidding me, bro.
Bam. Yeah.
She doing something strange for a little piece of change,
a little bit of change, you know what I'm saying?
Look, at the end of the day, it's some dude that's gonna put the fucking shit out there anyway. Like, that's why I would never pay for OnlyFans. Like, if you got to jerk the fuck off of OnlyFans, at least get the shit on the second-hand level. God damn, you got cats out here giving chicks, paying them. I know they tipping these chicks thousands of bucks, bro. I know they are, bro. I know they are, bro.
I'm just saying, the irony between that and knowing damn well how most of these spots we live in get blown the heck up, got destroyed doing reconstruction, all over the accusation of white women getting with black dudes. And then here we are with the ultimate irony taking place, with this white woman claiming what she said she claimed to be in the organization she was a part of, still claiming that to this day, dropping OnlyFans, and here we are. Most of her customer base finna be black men, most likely. I mean, it blows my mind.
Man, all I can say is, man, I've never even clicked on OnlyFans. So, you know, hey,
what goes around comes around, man. They do what they do.
Man, more power to them, man. You know, hey, look, you know. Hey, that's just crazy to me, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, it is what it is. You know? That's, you know, like, I guess it's what you got to fall back on, you know what I'm saying? That money maker. That's what they say. You sitting there, I was on the phone with a motherfucker, one of my young dudes, man, from the hood, you know, like one of my proteges. This is a young guy I used to mentor and shit. You know, real hood nigga. And, you know, he was with his people, his aunties and shit like that. He was around all women. And they was in there talking shit. And one of them said, "You sitting on your money maker." I said, God, Lord, man. St. Louis niggas, man. You sitting on your money maker. Wow.
Man, you can't make this up, family.
You can't even make it up, bro. You can't even make it up. But hey, fellas, we're you know, we drifting at this point, but we got to come back whenever, you know, like whenever you are ready to basically detail and talk about the white welfare and the handouts and the transfers that they got, and that they excluded black people from being able to receive. That's like I did that show a long time ago. It was a show like kind of detailing what they did with women, what they did with black men. They basically siphoned us off to the carceral state. They siphoned them off to the welfare state. And they use different tactics of exploitation and marginalization. They're masters, man. These people are Bubblehead Yakub, boy.
Yeah,
Bubblehead Yakub, man.
I can't,
back to your sentiment, Gigi, because that's the whole thing, right? So, because I wanted to bring that up, like the levels of disenfranchisement, the civil rights movement and the subversion, and then, you know, and so again, it comes out to, so, you know, everything that we talked about, and then when it comes out to, you know, white women being the winners of civil rights, you know, that, so, because the whole thing, that's what I want to call it, is make it make sense.
Okay, like, I'm down for that. I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah, my last Free Friday is going to be on the 21st. So if you mentioned that earlier, cool. So yeah, I'm down for that if you guys are, because we can definitely go that.
Where you going, Nameless? You leaving us?
Nah, we do realignments at my work, so my days off are about to change. I'll be off in the middle of the week, starting that coming Sunday. So yeah, that's all.
Well, you know, whenever you're ready, man, whenever you're available, we can still work around you. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
okay.
Yeah, but so put put it down for the 21st, man, and rock out on my, God willing, if he lets me see it, rock out on my 45th, like trying to make it all make sense.
Sounds
Well,
like
he didn't say we
fam.
have to wait till the 21st. He's just saying like that's his last day.
Like that's my last Friday I have. I had a 14th off too. So whenever y'all want to do it, I'm down.
Okay.
So
man.
it's on you, bros. It's on y'all, man.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
And that's no homo when I say that, bros, because they got a new movie out and shit called Bros. That's crazy, man.
God.
Yeah,
I heard that motherfucker flopped in the office too, man.
Yeah, man. For you cats who think it's over, man, I can't wait to get the post-civil rights and the war on drugs and the prison pipeline system. If you think it's all good after 1965, you are smoking that shit they brought up from Latin America.
Oh, you talking about that new Jim Crow, right? Oh, okay. Okay.
Them motherfuckers on that sherm. Them motherfuckers, they smoking with they on that sherm stick.
With Bush
that
and
shit
them.
that'll make a motherfucker eat. They on bath salts.
With Bush and them.
Yeah,
shout out to Camp David, man. Go ahead.
They on them bath salts, man. Them bath salts.
Zombie life, dog.
Yeah, man, we got to plug. You know what I'm saying? Smokey, you're fucking with my money. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, man. Yo, so if you really think that it's all good, man, because if you really think that it's all good after the civil rights movement, you got another thing coming. So what I want to do, Nameless, is that we'll come back on the 14th and we'll do Make It Make Sense. And then for your last Friday on the 21st, if you're free then we could talk, man. We could talk like everything after what all went down after the Black Panthers, right? The Crips and the Bloods, Gangster Disciples, all of that. Man.
We got to bring in the Panthers and all of that because I think that's a conversation that gets swept under the damn rug for some weird reason.
So like I said, we'll conclude next week with the up until the Black Panthers. We'll conclude it, and then we'll pick up, and then on the 21st, God willing, we can pick up from there, and we could rock out through, the war on drugs, the 80s welfare queen, making Black women the face of welfare. Man, let's
the
have
color
fun.
Purple.
Yeah.
Hey man, we going there. But yeah, fellas, let's close this out, man. I love y'all, man. Be peaceful. Man. Yeah. I'm getting hungry, man. You know what I'm saying? It's time for me to eat, boy.
Okay.
I was gonna make this jambalaya, man. I'm trying to perfect making this jambalaya, man. To the point where I feel like I can sell it. You know what I'm saying, huh?
Is crawfish season?
No, bruh. But I mean, it ain't. I don't put like crawfish in my jambalaya. I put shrimp, chicken, andouille, and bacon in mine. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That's what I put in my jambalaya, man. Chicken, bacon, shrimp, and andouille. And that should be going hard. Going hard, baby. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's time consuming to make because you got to cut up the celery, the onion, and the bell pepper. Then you have to cook all of the meats individually. You can't cook it all in one damn pot. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, you gotta.
Shout out to
it has to be cooked in stages. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Okay. But at any rate, y'all be peaceful, and don't do nothing I wouldn't do, or do something I wouldn't do if it leads into a positive, beneficial result.
Man, to the instructors on the panel and the folks in the chat, thanks for having me up, GG.
Os, man. Good. Os, man. And rude to the bros, man.
Rude.
So I'll holler at y'all later, man. I'm about to listen to this Teddy Riley jam, man. Look. I never did let you listen to this shit. Hold on, man. I got to work on the bass line because it's a little off. But, man, check this shit. I'm going to mute my mic and I'm gonna let these motherfuckers go with a little music. I just made this shit up yesterday. I thought it was cool as hell. I used to, man, Teddy Riley was my shit back in the day. You feel me?
Yo, Gigi, man, I'm telling you right now, man, I still, I could come through with a cross color or Carl Kanai outfit on Yo, I'll tell you what.
You gotta get him an Adidas warm up, dog.
Hey, I used to have an Adidas sweatshirt, man. Like, I mean, it was so dope, man. That sweatshirt cost about $120, man. It's just stupid, man, buying shit like that.
Jack City, I'm gonna tell you something. That New Jack Swing. That's because that was the era that I could really dance, right? Break dancing, I was all right, man. But to hit that runner, man, land of the kid and play and fall off in a half split, I was nice, fam. I worked. I get the job done. I mean, I was feeling it, man. You know what I'm saying? I want somebody to love me for me. I was nice then, man.
Shit, I was nice my damn self. Check this shit out, man. And then I'm about to go ahead and mute the mic and then turn this shit off. All right. Peace out, y'all. Y'all rock out. I want to rewind this shit. I wonder how to start it over. I don't even know how to do it, man. Fuck it. I'm just started where it is.
I like it.
I know I got to work on it, you know what I'm saying? The bass line ain't quantized enough like that, but I like that shit, boy. I was like, oh, I got to make something in dedication to my man
Ting
Teddy.
fire there.
Yeah,
Ting
man.
fire me set.
You gonna make me bump this Teddy's. I'm doing the jam. I'm doing Teddy's Jam, the original and the remix, as soon as we hang up.
There you go. There you go, bro. Well, I'll holler at y'all later, man. Peace. That's when the music was great, baby. I'll holler at y'all later, man.
Let's see if we got our frat brother Spice Adams to dance to it.
That's right, Rue. I'll holler at y'all later, man.
All right.
Y'all be good.
Peace.